today, your supply chain, the entire supply chain is also rapidly getting digitized, right? So even if you take the same example that I don't have to have inventory to service you, right? I need data about your preferences to service you, right? Because today I can have a backend arrangement with someone down the street to stitch their clothes in 24 hours.
Sure.
Right?
I get this question all the time, right? Saying that, when do I start? I am too small, right? My business is doing extremely well. I don't think I should be stopping anything right now.
Sure.
I am in the dumps, economy is down. I should not be doing. My answer is, if you are not doing today, you're already, behind. If you have to make a start, and that start is today.
That is a journey towards customer centricity.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, Ramesh Shanmuganathan, Kamal Kant, it's great to have you here on Echelon. And let's start here. Let's start with you, Kamal, right? Customer centricity is something that I think the private sector companies appreciate. They would usually say that the customer is at the center of everything they do. And if the customer is happy, then, you've got a great business there, right? What does customer centricity mean in a digital world, in a world that is increasingly digitalizing?
Great. Let me start with a small story my dad told me when I was a kid, right? When I was a 10-year-old kid, and that's had a lasting impact on me, and I'd probably say. So he said, if, you're going to a medical shop near your house to buy a medicine, which is probably a paracetamol. You go to store one and ask for a paracetamol. They tell it's probably, $1 or $2 or whatever is the money. You pay the money. He gives you the medicine. You come back, right? Now you go to store two, and the person who's meeting you meets you with a smile, and then he says, "Hey, how are you? Is school done? What's dad doing? And asks me a little bit about myself. I give him the same buck. He gives me the medicine. I come back home. The next time, a month later, which store would you go to? That is in life, right? And that has stayed. And I think this is the same for organizations as well. The more we know our customer and we relate to them and we touch small things, because that's an experience that you're giving, you're being proactive, and this can, to whatever magnitude you want to do, is the kind of customer that you're doing. And this is applicable to any industry. Know your customer and relate to him is customer first for me.
So that's a very simple but very effective analogy of why putting the customer at the center really matters, right? But we are all, just to build on Kamal's analogy, we are no longer always going to the store.
Yep.
We don't physically meet our customer. That's the reality of the world that increasingly we are living in. What does this mean to the dynamic, Ramesh?
So, Shamit, I think increasingly what we are seeing, especially with the digitization, I know we have this notion of degrees of separation, right? And normally it used to be around 5 to 6, and now with the digitization world becoming flatter, it is fast converging to about 2 or 3, right? So the challenge that you're also seeing is, with that kind of rapid digitization, you're also seeing a consumer is gaining more power than the supplier today, right? And the consumer is also becoming prosumer. He's producing and consuming things as well. So I think the stickiness comes by each consumer is also having an influencing base, right? So today, if you look at my social media, I have a reach on LinkedIn, 25,000, my first point of contact. And if I go to my third degree of separation, it's close to about 25 million. And that's phenomenal, right? So the digital reach is exponential, where the physical reach is not exponential. It's mostly linear, right? I think that's where the power converges to the consumer. And today, information is also at the fingertip for a consumer as much as the seller, right? So customer centricity and customer first comes about when the customer is looking at who do I consume this from? In that whole gamut of evaluation, he is also looking at what is affinity I have towards this person, this product, or this service, right? And that is greatly influenced by their peers, not by the supplier or the seller, right? I think that's where the whole thing about customer focus in the digital world becomes much more powerful and kind of an imperative for organizations than in the physical world, because as much as good news can spread faster, bad news can spread even faster, right? And that can really ruin your brand. So I think that's the reason I feel in a digital world, it's a much more strong imperative for you to just focus on customer centricity and build that customer focus, because you don't want to do the wrong things and for it to hurt the brand.
So what are the implications now if you go on a typical Colombo street? A lot of brick and mortar businesses still doing quite well, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, the shift is very apparent to digital. The growth rates in a digital business are far higher than in a traditional brick and mortar. What should these businesses now be thinking about? Okay, that they consider they need to transition, but what does that mean to your typical brick and mortar business? You're in retail, you're in financial services, you're possibly in hotels, a restaurant, service industries. What does that mean? Where do you start this?
See, let's again go back to say, and I'll pick on what Ramesh just said, right? As much as, and it's great that the seller and the buyer have information today that they need, but it's about how am I going to use, right? I need to know the demographic of that customer who's coming to me. Now I can put that in buckets. Now, if they are 50 plus, if they are 30 to 50 and they're up to 30 in age groups, and then, gender can play a part. Now in that age groups, now 1 to 30 or 10 to 30, they spend how much amount of time on digital.
Sure.
And up to a certain age, and today you can take everyone with the advent of digital world and digital media and social media and what content that they're consuming, when they walk into my store or when they visit my website or when they are talking about a particular product, they are already educated about it because someone's influenced them, or someone is influencing them, or they've already taken a review. It's not the time. So when you are selling to them, you're not selling it for the first time. You are actually making a impression on them to build or acknowledging what they already have. So that's how it's changed that you're selling to anybody today. So as an organization, how prepared am I? What is that set of people or subset of people who are going to buy from me, who I can be? So when he is walking into my store, into a particular store, can I have that? At what times they buy? Why are they buying? What is the interval? All that data is already there with you because you've been selling for a long time. That is there. How can you harness that? How can I really get that insights from them? When do I reach out? If sales is dipping in a particular quarter, or particular month, what is that I need to know? And can I actually forecast much better, saying that if I'm going to see a dip or if I'm going to see an uptick because of festive season that's probably going to come in, then what is that I need to do?
So are you trying to achieve predictability, stickiness? What are you trying to achieve in this scenario that you're talking to us about, Kamal? What are the key things that an organization...
I'm talking everything that you said.
Right.
We're talking about making the business more predictable.
Right.
When do I need to increase that curve, to increase sales? Number one. How do I increase stickiness? Stickiness is somebody's bought from me, retaining that customer, and then he becomes my ambassador, right? To the point that Ramesh mentioned about, how are they going to become my influencer or my ambassador?
Sure.
And how do I get new folks to come and add on to that pool of ambassadors that I already have? So we can do each of those. And that has to be done in a programmatic way. And that's how, tools, systems, and programs really can help. But that aside, you need to have that vision of what is that I want to do.
I think it just probably adding on to what Kamal said in terms of a brick and mortar today, I think what probably COVID taught most of the brick and mortar companies was that there will be a day that you can't be just reliant on brick and mortar and physical channels, right? So you need to have an omni-channel presence. You need to have visibility on the digital side of things. I think that's where, if you look at today, the disintermediation happening, especially with the marketplaces, the ecosystems getting built. And in India, I think in a rapid way, I think we were just having a chat yesterday about kind of disintermediation is happening with the marketplaces and platforms. So today, I don't think your USP is the product or a service that you're selling. It is the experience which is your USP, right? So consumerism is about, if you look at Gen Y, Z, and Alphas, their stickiness is the experience, not the product or service, right? How was my experience of consuming this product or this service, right? I think that's where the customer centricity and customer first is important, because you can't tailor an experience without attaching personality. So what is a personality?
Like Kamal was talking right at the outset.
Exactly. So without a personality, how do you personalize, right? I don't want to be just branded a generic guy saying I am A, B, or C, right? So I want attributes attached to me, right? Say, for example, if I go to a hotel repeatedly, and if they know I'm vegan and if they give me something on vegan, I'm going to get pissed off, right? So that is how people want to get appreciated. The moment they walk in, they would want you to identify and say, hey, this guy is a regular, this is what he likes. And even before I order, I might get my drink. I might get the food that So I think that's the kind of personalization today you're talking about, even in a physical world. But in a digital world, it's even more apparent, because your touch points and your informations are getting digitized as you consume more and more, right? So I think that's the opportunity that everyone has, and that's your opportunity another one has to disrupt the brick and mortar world as well.
Sure. And we talked about stickiness with Kamal, and he said it's several things that you're trying to achieve here by what you mean by customer centricity. Why is repeat clientele important for a business?
So today, I think it's a known fact that acquiring a customer is much more expensive than retaining a customer, right? So I think a lot of I don't know whether today loyalty, the word loyalty is misplaced. I don't think people are loyal, but there is stickiness. So that stickiness is not about loyalty. The stickiness is about, okay, this guy cares about me. He knows about me, and he is making an attempt to make my experience better every time I interact with him or her, right? I think so. That is the whole appreciation the consumer is looking for, right? Because I think that's where even Kamal was saying, now when you go to a shop, if this guy was like cold-feeted and just gives you a Panadol, and if another guy chats you up and shows that he cares for you as a person, you're obviously going to kind of lean towards the latter, because you like that. You like to be pampered, right? So I think the entire consumerism is about wanting that feeling of personalization, right? I think that's where, if you look at even a lot of even the low-cost carriers, without even no frills, but their customer service is the key differential. If you look at even if you look at their strategy in my canvas, the pivotal point is they would differentiate customer service, the check-in process, the experience in the airline. So that is the whole differentiation, the human element, the human factor, right?
I'll probably just build on that and tell you with little numbers, right? Now, from my experience and what we see is, if I have a customer and a customer stays with me for 5 years, right? He is someone that I am actually looking at for 5 years. I can actually do 12x business with them. The first year starts with 1x. But then if they stay with me for 5 years, I am actually doing, we're going to do probably 12x, right? Now, what does 12x mean? As an organization, I am constantly building, right? And as I'm building, I'm getting in new services. Now, when I bring in new services, it's lots more easy for me to sell to that person that service, right? So it actually increases in that sense. So that is something that I really think retaining a customer is between acquiring and retaining. A retaining customer probably adds a lot to my top line and my bottom line.
References as well.
Exactly.
References as well. So, because I think that's where the whole thing about references and all of those stuff also gets through. Yeah.
And they are the first ones to try any new product that I would bring in. So they also become probably my test market for new products that I want to do, feedback that I want to get, which is important for an organization that is growing, right? So clearly, these are people who will tell you out of, I would say love for the brand that you have, because end of the day, it's a brand, it's a business. And I would keep ever expanding. And if I have somebody for 5 years, for 10 years, look at your own self, right? Look at each one of us. There would be one brand we relate and we've been a customer for a long time.
Yeah.
We would reference it. We would talk about it. We would talk about their new products. We will feel about it when they come up with something. I think that's the power.
Right. So, for a business to have data on their customers, it's not as difficult as it used to be. You may have a simple point of sales system, can gather some basic data. If you're in e-commerce, then you got a mountain of data there already to start with, right? But what you're talking about sounds to me like, hey, this is great for a mid-market or fairly large organization. Am I wrong to sort of come off with that impression?
Not at all. Not at all. Everybody can do it. And I'll tell you this example of a boutique that was there, which used to rent out clothes for, occasions that you can wear. Now, what do they collect? They're collecting. I probably went in and I said, hey, I want to go to this award function and I need to wear this extra special suit, right? So I took it from them and they've collected my information. At that same time, they're also collecting details around my anniversary, my birthday, my family details, and I am disclosing that out of consent. And whatever I'm giving first-party data out of consent that I give, they capture that. But on my birthday, they're going to say, hey, this is available. If you're going for dinner, you could do. What also that boutique could do, which is typical one store, tie up with a restaurant at the back end and tell, you are also sending a coupon saying that if you use us and go to the restaurant, probably if you have to go to Chutneys at Cinnamon Grand, you would probably get a discount. That's how you're building. The boutique is building its ecosystem. At the same time, also, alluring that customer to come back and visit me again and again. So this is how you create that stickiness. This is how you build on that information. If, my wife's birthday is coming up, sending a dinner for two at a restaurant here on Gall Road is something that we could definitely
And also, I think, in addition to what Kamal said, today, your supply chain, the entire supply chain is also rapidly getting digitized, right? So even if you take the same example, that I don't have to have inventory to service you, right? I need data about your preferences to service you, right? Because today I can have a backend arrangement with someone down the street to stitch that cloth in 24 hours, right? The material that I can source. But do I have enough data points to give you what you want? The key difference is that not stitching a suit or not putting it on display or holding the inventory, right? So today, if you look at a lot of the even brick and mortar stores, if you go to Singapore, you go to Thailand, now you walk into a shop, they will stitch a suit within 24 hours, right? And that's the kind of personalization we are talking about. And if you can do that at scale, is where the business is going to thrive. So today they are still doing with the brick and mortar. You got to walk into the store to figure out that this guy is doing this, right? But if he had the presence and the brand to say, hey, this is something I'm able to offer, and you can create stickiness, that is where I feel the bigger value would accrue. And in terms of exponential growth for these guys as well.
In fact, there are businesses now in India, which have come up saying, it's a fantastic name in terms of it's a startup, right? What they're doing is they're online. They don't have a brick and mortar store. They have it. But then they know my size, right? Last time I got a suit done, they know my pant that I need, what color I like, what kind of suit I need. And they also know that, okay, Kamal takes the suit. The jacket is one, but he buys 2 pants. With the thing. So that kind of personalization detail that they have. And then, in some point in time, like, maybe a year down or 6 months down, they say, Kamal, and you last bought, there is this new fabric with new material and, winter is coming. Last time what you bought was, a cotton mix, but this one is wool. It's very light, but, can help you. That is, really customer first and making that impression.
One of the flashpoints, or one of the things that businesses might be concerned about, is the ethical use of data. Now, Sri Lanka currently has in its statutes a new law.
Yep.
It's called the Personal Data Protection Act. It is already effective and will come into full force in 2025 March, right? What does this mean? I mean, there's the ethical use of data in the first instance, and now there is the regulatory requirement to comply with, right? In terms of customer centricity, how does an organization navigate this landscape?
I think that's where I feel you will probably need tools and platforms, because today I think you might be aggregating data responsibly, but not maybe storing and managing it, governing it in a responsible way. So I think that's where tools are important, like SAP, Salesforce, all these things come into being, because now today, even when you are aggregating data, there is a concept called consent, right? Now, am I consenting for you to take this information and use it for whatever purposes, and maybe even share it with others in creating value for me, right? So that consent management becomes an important part of personalization today in customer centricity, because today I'm consenting, okay, you're collecting this data, and I'm consenting you will responsibly use this because I appreciate this personalization for myself, right? So I think that's where the whole responsible ethical usage also comes about. So today, if you look at, as I said, you take a supermarket, for example, right? Now, if you take a point of sale, if you look at the patterns of usage of data by a consumer, you could predict a lot of things. The household income, who is living in the household, what age group, what demographics. So ultimately, it can be misused, it can be used sensibly also, right? So that's where consent is important, to ensure that it is used for the right purpose, and that is where these laws which are coming in are good, so that the consumer's interests are protected, but it also drives people to aggregate this data in a responsible way. And that's where you will need the tools and stuff to ensure that this information is stored and it's not compromised, and it's kind of used in an ethical way as possible.
So one thing that we at Salesforce do is there is something called as the Einstein trust layer, right? Now, what Ramesh spoke about is getting all of data that I need in a consented way. Now, one is I'm storing all of this data from, let's say, the Keel supermarket. Now we have AI models that are public, and we all use them. The whole AI models that are out there for public are fantastic. But as an organization, how do I predict or control that these AI models are learning from whatever is public data and not from my company data? So when I implement systems and tools, I need to have a layer which will restrict what is the knowledge that I have within my company. And that is personal information. That is information that I have taken consent that I will not share with anybody, and that is not available out. So the Einstein trust layer kind of really protects it. So you need to have those mechanisms which will build a shield, a trust layer, and keeping it within your organization and not providing it outside. And I think the law that you are getting, we have a similar one in India, which is also there. Every country, like if you take Europe, there is GDPR that is there. So now with data really getting bludgeoned out, countries are really understanding where it can go wrong and putting these structures. As organizations, it's important for us to realize how do we put those, rails in place that we really control. So it becomes very important.
For an organization that wants to start on this journey, and lots of organizations may have the data, they may have basic core systems that are relevant to their specialized business. But customer relationship management isn't always a forte of these core systems, whether you're
Exactly. Yeah.
financial institution, whether you're a hotel, whether you're in retail, right? How do they approach it? Can they buy an off the market product, a product like, for instance, Salesforce, and then plug that on to their existing systems, to their existing data? How do they sort of, where does the data sit? Where is the core system sitting? What do they plug onto it? How does it work? How do they approach this?
I think the simpler thing is to probably, as I said, you need to look at the maturity of the organization as well. Right? Because a lot of the time, people have transaction data, right? So it's like, you have records of what has happened. It's more historical. So today, if you're trying to service a consumer, you have to see whether is there any predictable pattern which is emerging of these transactions, right? So that would be, as I said, would be the basic starting point, so that you have an identity of this consumer, right? So if you don't have an identity of this consumer, you can't build that whole profile. So then how do I build a 360 view, right? So I think that's where tools like Salesforce and all of that would help in terms of looking at what is the demographic that you would want to now build for this consumer, right? So I think that's where some of this data could be systemic, some of this data could be external, right? So today I might even harvest certain data from social media about this person to understand the patterns, right? So if, say for example, now if this guy goes and searches for some kind of culinary, right? So I know that this person is wanting to cook something. So I could definitely push a recipe, right? From even the supermarket, a recipe for this, and say these are the ingredients you could purchase from Kill Super, right? So the tentacles that you are trying to drive into the digital world is huge, because today, unless he comes to the supermarket, you wouldn't know that he is wanting to shop. Now today, his intent of searching for something on the web itself is giving you the opportunity to say, hey, I can push these things to him. I know this is a known customer of mine. It's a repeat client. Can this be shipped? Right. So I think that's where the power of this whole digital world really drives that imperative in terms of investing in these kind of platforms, because the opportunity is manifold. And the opportunity can't be uncovered unless you're in the face of the consumer.
See, I'll probably give you, to add up on what Ramesh said. Every organization has a system of record. As human beings, we have it. Organizations have it. Now, system of record in a small business is probably a ledger, a notebook that they probably. A slightly more evolved company where they can afford to keep one person, they have a laptop or a desktop, and they have a sheets on which they probably maintain. A slightly more complex and evolved organization has system of record, which is in the form of an ERP or a small MIS system they call. A large organization has something. Now, when do I automate? What do I do? Now, system of record is a very static thing, because you are only putting data in and it is there. But then how do I leverage it? What do I, how do I do is where the engagement layer comes in. And that's where you need someone like a Salesforce to come over and become the engagement layer, harnessing that system of record that you have and how you do it. Now that step is to clearly understand what is that I want to do, which is what Ramesh kind of spoke about, of leveraging it. For organizations, they need to chew how much they need to start, right? Now, there are some organizations which can say, I will do it big bang because they are digitally mature, right? But there are organizations, they are not sure. They can attack only one problem first for saying that, I will do this to increase my number of leads or number of closures. I will increase this to, which is the biggest pain point. If customer service is my pain point, I'll probably do customer service. I will only go after my existing customers and see how much I can bring. Can I do a 20% uplift by bringing that back to me? So you take one problem at a time and try and solve. For organizations which are more mature, can probably look at 2 or 3 or 4 KPIs to do something more. But then that engagement is what you need to know. Who's your customer? And that's already available with you. All of these organizations have it. Now, as long as it's 20 customers, you can do it with human mind.
Sure.
If it is 2,000 customers that I have, then you need help
The
of
digital
systems.
world, yeah. And also, I think, just to kind of give context now, you have an ERP at the core of the organization. Then you have supply chain management, which extends to your backward supply. CRM is forward driven in terms of reaching out to your consumer. So your digitization process starts with the ERP within the organization, supply chain to drive your supply ecosystem, and then towards the customer to digitize the customer part of the equation, right? So the CRM becomes very critical in the digital world because that is your primal point through which your customer is going to interact with you, right? So ERP is totally for your internal operations and driving your efficacy within the organization. So I think that's where the CRM becomes a pivotal thing in terms of building customer centricity, personalizing services. That's the platform which is going to enable you to do that.
Kamal, in India, we're seeing, I think from what we can see here from Sri Lanka, there is a resurgence in digital businesses, businesses that use primarily digital platforms to serve customers, services, products, whatever, How crucial is customer centricity for the success of businesses like these? Is it more important than, for instance, if you were a brick and mortar store in the same locale?
See, I think it's just not digital, right? Customer centricity from a digital world is needed for everyone. Yeah. Today, there is this question of you take a normal person on the road, look at how much time, where does he spend? Does he spend more time watching TV? Does he spend more time at work? If you take a block of what they're doing, they're either consuming content or they're walking, looking
they're
at
using this
they're
device.
using it's become a part of life, and today we are starting to do business with it, right? You're doing the most secure thing, right? Which is the most secure thing? Our money. Now we are doing money transactions on your mobile. You're transferring money. You're doing all of that on your mobile. You're looking up, right? When you travel, your tickets, your boarding passes, everything is on mobile. We've started using it. It's become a part of our life. So I think when it's become for the end customer, I think, for organizations, it is important that you're also digitally there. You can be brick and mortar, but you have to also be, digital and physical, right? There is also this word people use, phygital, right? There are jargons are definitely there, but then it is important that you have to be there because if you're not going, your customers are moving there. There was a time, like I like what Ramesh said about, centralization, how digitization has gone, centralization, decentralization, and democratization. Today, any technology is first touched by that person on the street. Which means they are actually getting the latest of technologies because it's there in your TikToks, in your Instagrams. If AI is coming, AI is already there. If you watch a particular reel once, it's the same kind of content that keeps coming to you. You buy a certain thing on a particular website, they start pushing the same thing to you. I think it's a great lever for organizations to learn and start leveraging that.
So I think a good example of what you spoke of in terms of centralization, decentralization, democratization. Now you take your mobile phone, right? I log into Amazon, I buy something, I will pay by PayPal, I could ship it through DHL. So today we don't talk about supply value chains anymore. It's a value ecosystem. I just assemble momentarily a value ecosystem for me and disbanded it the moment I consumed it.
Sure.
Right? So that's the power of technology which has converged onto a device today, right? But if you really look at the back end, there's so much which is happening.
Exactly.
And in the face of it, for me to consume, I need to have visibility of what is this product and why would I want to consume. I think that's where the whole customer centricity piece becomes more important because it's a crowded marketplace today. Everyone is wanting your mind share. Everyone wants your buck, right? Wallet share. So I think that's where the contention is with 8 billion people out there and with the digitization, anyone in the world can be selling anything to these 8 billion people, right? the physical geography does not matter anymore. I think that's where the opportunity and the threat is for anyone who wants to do business today. That's why in the digital world, customer centricity, acquiring a customer, retaining a customer becomes even more paramount in terms of growing a business.
And I'll also tell you this, right? What does democratization really do? Or what does SaaS and cloud that is really brought is it does not differentiate between a giant which is probably doing $1 billion of business and a small shop which is probably doing 100,000, right?
Same features.
It's the same features. Technology is same for all. It really equalizes everybody. Next, anything new that technology brings, it's the same for everybody. And look at the customer. The customer is not bothered about what you're doing. I think I'll give you an example which I really like, and we really kind of talk about it, is like take a service department. I go into a service department in an apartment building. Previously, we had apartments where I had to do my own interiors. I have to do this. If I need a jacuzzi in the room or I need a gym, I have to do it personally. Today in a service department, it's all common that is available. What I do inside my house can be slightly different because I can have furniture moved around, but common services like, let's say, a jacuzzi, a gym, a swimming pool, a football ground or a badminton ground or a ping pong table are all additional that's added. Now you are saying, okay, we want to go, ESG is coming and I need to reduce electricity and I want to go solar. You apply it on top. It's applicable to everybody. So new features and technology has become that today, right? So it abstracts anything that is applicable is uniform for all. But as organizations, if you are that small one you leverage, you will run that much faster and it's easier. So to your question of small and medium-sized organizations are at an advantage of adopting technology, running much faster than the big organizations, which probably because of the processes will take longer time for them to bring it in. So they are at an advantage and how they probably leverage. That's how I would see it.
I think even like things like cloud kitchen, right? So today, if you look at even post-COVID, every kitchen in a household has potentially become
a cloud kitchen.
Right? So because that ecosystem that you're plugging into is so powerful and it has everything that for anyone to become an entrepreneur and build a business, right? So I think that's the power today this whole cloud has brought about in terms of opportunity as well.
In a market like Sri Lanka, which is very different, I think, from where India is and the transformation you've experienced in India over the last 5 years, not more than that, right? It's possibly even less than 5 years, the transformation you've seen of consumers adopting digital in their day-to-day and using a smartphone to do so, right? In the transformation that we think will then follow here, right? It's a natural progression. It may follow. What do you think are the big bumps that Sri Lanka is likely to hit in that transformation, whether you're a large organization here or a small, mom and pop kind of shop? What are the big bumps that we can anticipate?
I think the biggest challenge I see is still a lot of Sri Lankan people still hold cash, right? I think the moment a digital wallet becomes sticky with banks now going digital, launching wallets, and I think one of the missing links for us is the digital identity in the country, right? If that also comes into play, I think quickly you're going to see like everyone is going to have a wallet. Even government is going to say you need to have a wallet to even transact with me.
Aadhaar is India's version of a digital ID.
Yeah, digital ID, and now they have the UPI also, right, which is linked to that. So the government says if you want to deal with me, you need to have an account and you need to have a UPI, right? So I think that is where like your identity will be associated with a wallet ID and a UPI or a payment ID, right? So then this is going to really kind of take off. Right? Because today, I think digital is because if you look at today, a lot of things are cash on delivery, right? The cash is still becoming the problematic child because you're still paying through cash. Yeah. So I think once digital currencies becomes a lifestyle in Sri Lanka, I think you're going to see a huge exponential growth in the digital commerce space. I think that's where then even tools like CRM is going to become much more imperative.
So this came on India. I mean, you've been through this, Kamal. So what can Sri Lanka learn? What can Sri Lankan companies who are where they are, and we anticipate that there will be a digital ID payments ID of sort that will come into Sri Lanka. If we expect this to come, how should we prepare?
See, so let me tell you, right? What happens with the digital ID is your cash transaction is to somebody secure.
Sure.
Right? You know what they're doing. And then it kind of solves that problem of, I need to run to an ATM, bring things, and it's much faster.
Sure.
Business is happening in a much faster way. So when business is happening in a much faster way, closure, seller and buyer, the demand is kind of getting taken care and it's happening much faster. Now, if that happens faster, you need to start having your backend systems, your inventory, is your organization equipped for that speed?
Can you predict? Yeah.
Can you predict? Can you deliver? All of that becomes very important. And that, again, I will go back to harness. The other point is also to understand what is my organization mix? What are the people that I have? Because change management is a big thing. When you bring in new technology, there's always resistance. Now, that's a point I can definitely talk about, but I really liked what Ramesh spoke yesterday about baby boomers and Gen Z. I think I would want you to, Ramesh, to tell that rather than me steal that. Why don't you?
No, I think even the interesting conversation was, I think you should touch on that farmers, the pesticide company who was collecting data as well. I think, so today, I think the interesting story is about, even if you're trying to build on a digital identity. So today, I think the biggest challenge is even validating someone's identity is a challenge, right? So once you have digital identity, building that whole space of the 360 of the customer becomes easier and it becomes accessible, right? Say today, even if I don't know you as Shamindra, now if I query your LinkedIn profile, I will probably get a better view of you in a jiffy, right? So I think then the power is, I don't have to even go shopping around, looking for the data. So what of the data do I want to internalize to my organization and then build on it? Right. So that is where now you will have direct interfaces to build into LinkedIn, to Facebook, to all the social media profiles. Right. So at the power, in addition to that, is now if you look at even a telco, today, if you look at the data that they are sitting on is huge. Right. So today, if you look at Google Maps, now even Waze, the new one, they are all riding on information which the consumer is feeding to them.
Absolutely.
Right? So consumer is enriching their product. So today, I think that's where the world is moving, right? So today, I think we were talking about the baby boomers and all this stuff, but I think if you look at traditionally today, in the world that we evolved to, we were not born in the world where the internet existed. That today, there are people who don't know an era where internet didn't exist, right? So for them, it's like oxygen. It's there, it's given. So, and the Gen Alphas are definitely going to demand something which doesn't exist today. I think that's where I said, when you're profiling customers also, you need to understand which segment does this guy belong, right? Because if you don't really then target that guy appropriately, you might use the wrong channel to reach the wrong person, right? So I think that is where, even in terms of segmenting your customer base and understanding what is the best channel to reach the person is also important in terms of personalization strategy.
I probably will talk about those examples from, India that we are seeing, right?
So basically use cases of customer data.
Yeah.
Yes.
So hopefully anonymized, but still building it.
So India largely still is an agrarian economy, right? Though we're growing at great pace, our metros are growing, there's huge amount of young population that is there, and digital is adoption is happening. I'll tell you how is it happening in the hinterlands of India. Now, if you look at India, farmers really depend a lot on fertilizers, on urea, on that, right? So one of the large fertilizer organization, which is in India, has set up this call center, right? To call farmers and understand, hey, to profile a farmer himself. And this is information about where is he from, what is his acreage that he has, what is the crop that he sowed, and what are the 3 cycles of crop that he probably sowed. and then, what is the other information that he needs. So they constantly converse with the farmer and collect that information. Now at their end, they have integrated with few applications that are available, right? Now when they call a farmer, what does the farmer ask? First thing he wants to know is, when will rain come? Now last year it came. Today, with whatever we're going through in the world, we can't predict when rain comes. And especially what we see, the meteorological guys would say will definitely not align. So they ask saying, tell me, when is rain going to come? And that's something that they say. Or what is the weather prediction for the next one month, right? Or 10 days, because he sowed his seeds, or it's actually growing. So that's one information. So this call center actually has that detail. The second one is, once my crop is ready and I cut it, tell me which is the best place that I need to go sell, because where is the best price? So we call it in India mandi. A mandi in Hindi is market. So which market I can go get best price for my produce, right? That's an information the farmer wants to know. The third thing is, he sowed a crop. One particular part of the crop has some, white color thing, or there is dryness on the leaf. So he can actually take a photograph. He doesn't know anything about it. Send it back to a message to the call center. They can advise him saying that, okay, this is this thing, you're watering more or you're watering less. So there's information that they're probably sharing. Apart from that, there are, websites that are available by the government where they've integrated this to say if there is an endemic or a pandemic affecting that region. When they profile, what is this organization getting? It is getting in which region what crop is growing, in which region what are they doing, 3 cycles, 2 cycles, where is cotton more, where is it less, where do they have big farmers, right, with large quantities of land, and where are those smaller farmers where there is mutated land that is available. With that, this organization can actually cater to them better. Now, smaller farmers, they might want spraying service because they don't have, the equipment to go and do it. They'll say, hey, can you send somebody? Then the company will invest saying that, okay, in this area, I would put one person who will do spraying at a nominal cost. He's increasing sales and that's it. Whereas where the bigger farmers, where they have bigger ones, he'd probably sell the product directly to them. But he knows it better based on that. That is something that's happening. The next one I would want to give is dairy. There are dairy customers who use us, because I think India is going through what we call as a protein revolution, right? There was a time in the country where majority of the people could not even have milk, but now they are having milk. Now milk byproducts like yogurt, paneer, all of that. After they have become protein. So we call it the protein revolution, and it's called farm to fork, right? And when that revolution is actually happening for a dairy guy who has probably 200 cows, how can he get best bang for the buck? Which is the region that he needs to cater to? Whom does he need to sell to? What can be? In fact, there is one dairy that has fitness trackers on the legs of the cows. He's must got it. And then from that, he figures out if temperature of the cow increases, if it does X number of steps less, it's going to produce this much lesser milk. And with that, he knows this much amount of milk is getting, and he can do it. It's all, it's IoT. It's prediction, it's tech, but this is not rocket science. These are farmers who are doing, and these are not farmers who went to, university or something. They've taken simple technology, solved simple use cases, which is helping a lot more predictable business, right? And then, like if I know Ramesh probably wants 2 liters of milk on a Friday, right? And he needs some extra curd, I can predictively provide that to him. Because we all have this thing, right? Curd, 2 packets extra, because on Friday typically on Saturdays there is biryani and you want raita to be made. It's mixed like that, right? You know your customers to that detail.
This has been a fascinating conversation. I'll ask each of you to, take a minute or two, put some closing thoughts on the table for us. I'll start with you, Kamal.
See, I get this question all the time, right? Saying that, when do I start? I am too small, right? My business is doing extremely well. I don't think I should be stopping anything right now.
Sure.
I am in the dumps, economy is down. I should not be doing. My answer is, if you're not doing today, you're already, behind. If you have to make a start, and that start is today.
That is a journey towards customer centricity.
Exactly. And for that, know your customer first, know their preferences, be proactive. What is the experience that you want to give, right? And what is that positive experience? Positive experience is not on multiple things. It's one thing you start on and build. But for that, knowing your customer, knowing their preferences, giving that experience is important. And for that, you need a set of tools, a set of processes. Your own people need to be equipped, and it does not. It goes across all organizations. A brick and mortar, a small store with 5 employees to a organization which is huge with 5,000 employees. Yeah. Everybody needs it because the world is going in that direction. Because any organization is not looking at restricting themselves to a particular city. You want to expand to us from a city to the state to the country and international.
I think the future of businesses, I think today, I remember we were talking about Web3 and decentralized autonomous organizations some time back. So today I feel the opportunity is ripe for any organization of any size to put customer at the center of their planning and then to see what is the business that they would want to build. I think today if you look at startups, all of that are evolving because they are trying to solve a problem or a need a set of customers have, right? So I think that's the opportunity you have because today, in the past, we've always looked at a product or a service and say, how do I now build a business around this, right? And the future is all about putting a set of customers at the center and assessing what are they going to demand from us in the next 5 years? And is there a business case of building something? And then even if you are building a business, can I just focus on a small part of the value ecosystem because I'm good at this and build on that and bring others, align them to do the rest of it, right? Like say if I'm good at manufacturing or if I'm good at cooking, let me focus on the cloud kitchen. Let the rest do the supply chain, right? So that's the opportunity today you have. If you know your customer, I think your business can evolve much faster and the stickiness is also assured. So I think, as I said, echoing on Kamal's thought as well, there is no any size fits. You need to be at the right size to invest on a tool like this or to build a customer-centric journey, right? So if you're not starting it today, you should start sooner than later because I feel that's not going to hurt you. So you should not be waiting saying the economy is down and I don't want to kind of do anything. But I think this is something that I've heard as well because a lot of people think CRM is only good when the business is doing well, right? So if the business is not doing well, that means that maybe you don't know what your customers want. And knowing your customer maybe then will be the turnaround for the business as well. So I think we've spoken a lot about in the past about AI first, cloud first, all of that stuff. But in the digital era, it's an imperative to start looking at your customer and understand your customer and digitize the semantics so that you're able to cater to the customer better and create the stickiness.
Ramesh Shanmuganathan, Kamal Kant, it's been a pleasure. Fantastic conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.